It's my great honor to receive this from my great friend for 36 years, since we were both elected during an era when, for one brief period of time, they actually elected children to Congress years ago. And the font of the commitment that I have to these issues is the same that Dick has, which begins with the fact that both of our fathers were milkmen and delivered milk. And so when you live in a home like that, you learn things that are fundamental. And that's what Dick brought during all of his years as the leader of the Democrats in the House of Representatives to absolutely everything that he did, everything that he touched, every speech he ever gave. This award being presented to me by this great man, and that's what he is, it just means the world to me. The combination of the award and the person who gave it to me is really what makes this evening so special to me. And so I thank you, Dick, and I thank you for everything that you have done for our country and for me as well. Thank you. And Deborah Peel, a one-woman multinational commitment to privacy, a force of nature unto herself. It has no comparison anywhere on the planet in terms of what she means to this. It's unbelievable, and is a sublessee of my office. Okay? That is where she has been living for the last 20 years on all of these issues. And she insistently, persistently, consistently demands that this issue be dealt with, be recognized, and be included in the halls of public policy in Washington, D.C. And she brings the common sense of Texas, which she shares with Joe Biden, to our body. And I agree with Dick that, and with Joe, that victory is inevitable on all of these issues. Back in 1996, when I was the lead Democrat doing the Telecommunications Act of 1996, not one home in America had broadband in 1996. Not one home had broadband. Not that long ago. Well, in that bill, in the House side, with Dick as the leader, I was able to include language that mandated that the Federal Communications Commission build a privacy bill of rights across all communications platforms. In the conference committee, in the final 2 days of the conference committee, the word came back to me that there were a couple of senators who were insisting that it be taken out, or there would be no bill. And you have to understand, because Joe and I are good examples of this, the Republicans are the opponents, the Senate is the enemy. They can act in a highly petulant fashion at critical junctures that extract concessions that are all out of proportion to the power that they should be able to exercise as individuals. And so, since then, I have made it my commitment to ensure that piece by piece we do construct a privacy Bill of Rights. In 1999, we were on the way to repealing Glass-Steagall. And Glass-Steagall was a 1934 law that many people believed needed updating. I had a bit of an eyebrow cast towards it But I tried to be pragmatic in how I would respond. And what I said was, if we're going to allow insurance companies and brokerages and banks all now merge together and share all the information that each of them knew about an individual, that would mean that the checks that had been written by a family for Ritalin for their children would now also be seen by the insurance company that had done the insurance exam, the health exam, or the family member, et cetera, et cetera. And so the bill came out of the House Banking Committee, no privacy. The bill came out of Senate Banking, no privacy. But there was one committee that was left, which was the Energy and Commerce Committee, because pursuant to the construction of the Glass-Steagall Law in 1934, there had been a division as well in the Congress where the securities jurisdiction was in the Commerce Committee and the banking jurisdiction was in the banking committee, mirroring the separation that was actually in the law. And so we had one shot at it. And so I introduced the amendment saying that there had to be a privacy bill of rights now for these families, as all of this information was aggregated, so it wasn't turned into a single product of the healthcare status of every family in the United States. And I made the amendment thinking that, well, here's this liberal Democrat, that will seek to accomplish this goal. And then, as I finished, a hand went up on the Republican side. The gentleman from Texas, Mr. Biden, seeks recognition. For what purpose? I rise in support of the Markey Amendment. Now, it was a funny thing that happened in the hearing that day. It was a markup. It was a full committee. It's of the biggest bill, the biggest money bill going through Congress that year. And sitting out in the audience, there were maybe 100 lobbyists, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, Travelers Insurance, every major company in the United States.
And my PAC contribution dropped 20%.
And Joe Biden said, I rise in support of the Markey Amendment. And so now a debate broke out in the committee as Joe began to outline his concerns about privacy. And panic because all the members were sitting over here and all the lobbyists are sitting over there, and there can't be any communication. We're about to have a debate with congressmen actually having to do all of the thinking for themselves. And so, privacy reports in the New York Times the next day. They reported that one lobbyist for one of those aforementioned large firms up in New York City went outside and very loudly could be heard calling back to New York City saying, we have a big problem. And that big problem was that at the conclusion of that debate, on a bipartisan basis, with the members just thinking about their own families, they voted to include it in this Glass-Steagall bill. And so all of the privacy laws in the financial sector go back to that moment, and that debate, where the members, as you're saying, Joe, began to just reflect what the 99% on the plan. And so Joe and I, we created a privacy caucus after that. And on a bipartisan basis, Democrat and Republican, we just keep looking at Google and Facebook. But we look at HIPAA, and say, as I did with Deborah sitting in my office every day, we are going to completely pound the administration into submission on the drafting and the implementation of HIPAA. And then when we passed the $20 billion in the stimulus bill to have this electronic communication of medical information, Deborah once again comes and sits in my office and says, we must pound these people to make sure that the information as it's being transmitted isn't compromised, and turn it into something that comes back to haunt people. And the reason that that is the case is that there is a Dickensian quality to this new information era. It is the best of wires and the worst of wires simultaneously. It can enable and ennoble, or it can degrade and debase. And whether it does one or the other depends ultimately on the values that human beings attach to these technologies. What purpose do we want them to serve? And so, yes, we want all the benefits of speedy communication of medical information, processing of bills so that the cost can be reduced. All of those things are great. But the price that is paid should not be the compromise of the price of every American. That's too high for us. And so on all those healthcare records, the values which I bring to it are the same values that Dick and I had as boys growing up in a house where the doctor and the nurse, they were sacred people. You didn't know any doctors. You never met any doctors except when you were in their office. They didn't live in your neighborhood. But that nurse, when she took out your record, there was a little key, and she would pull out that metal drawer and pull out your file, and you knew that when you were in that room, the only people who would know about your secrets were you, your mother, Dr. McDonald, and the nurse, and that was going back in and locked up. And no one else was going to know that. That was the world we grew up in. And that's the world that people still want. They want that secret about the teenage daughter that has anorexia, still locked up. They haven't told anyone else in the family. It's not a product that's sold to the companies. And so when Facebook or others say, well, if a teenage girl goes online and just checks out a site for weight loss, why can't we just turn that whole thing into a product that we sell to 100 companies that we can monetize? Well, one of the reasons is that girl is a very vulnerable person. And being reminded all day long, every site that she goes to, that, she has this issue because she made one inquiry trying to find out a little bit about weight loss, or that whole issue in general, is just not something that should be compromised. It's not something that should be turned into a product. And a big part of Facebook's actual market value is basically, unfortunately, attached to their promise that they're going to have all the records of kids who are 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, that they can market to. Well, I think that's one thing that Democrats and Republicans, liberals and conservatives should all be able to agree on. That kids should have a right to grow up. Kids should have a right to have the right to make mistakes. That they should have a right to mature. We should all be able to agree on that. When Dick and I were growing up, we were kind of in a forgive and forget era. So you made a big mistake when you were 14. But by the time you were applying to college, long forgot. Not so in the Facebook era. Not so in this modern era. It lives on, and it can come back to haunt these children. And these medical secrets, they're just too important, to be allowed to be commoditized. So Joe and I, we're going to continue, and we're not going to stop. We will win. In the same way we won on Glass-Steagall, we're going to continue to win. We made it as strong as we could have made it. Each issue right down the line. I represent Brandeis University. So it's a great honor for me to be the second winner of the Brandeis. It's pretty much, is my life in a nutshell. But we venerate Louis D. Brandeis from Waltham, Massachusetts, in the heart of the district. This is about as high an award as anyone can be given. He is one of the great citizens of the 20th century in the United States. And for me, this honor is something that I'm going to hold here. Dick left, and Dick no longer is in the same income group that I am. And so the compensation which we receive are these relatively inexpensive awards, which are given to us, but invaluable because of the sentiment that's behind it. That's why it's so important. Thank you all.